Okay, guys. Well, we're right around the top of the hour, so I just want to thank you for being here, first of all. And if you are, if you're in the restyling market, or if you are an installer of accessories, or you're just involved in the industry, then you're definitely in the right place. I'm really glad to have an opportunity to share this information. I've worked really hard on some of this, and my team has helped as well. And I've kind of learned a lot of things over the last couple years that I wanted to share with you guys that I think are valuable. And also, I just wanted it to be an opportunity for you to take a moment and think about goals. So I wanted to start with a story. There's an old friend of mine who he's actually not in our industry. He's in the mortgage industry, which I would hate to be in right now, by the way. But he he was always really successful, and he grew a big team. He had a whole bunch of mortgage loan officers underneath him. And I said, "How are you doing this? Like, you crush your goals every year. How are you doing this?" And he said, "I got a secret." And I said, "Okay, well, I'll bite. What is it?" And he goes, "Well, I get my favorite bottle of whiskey." And I said, "Well, you're already starting off the wrong way there, but okay." And he says, "I get my bottle of whiskey, and I get in my truck, and I drive out to the mountains." So in our area, where I'm in that kind of greater Seattle area, we got mountains, ocean. We it's not too far away. So maybe at most he had to drive an hour and a half. He said he goes out and finds a random cabin like Airbnb, and he, without anybody else, and he goes there and he stays a day, and he stays overnight, and all he does is open his journal and he writes. And I'm like, okay, interesting. But what he said was the key was that he actually took the time to goal set, because we all talk about goal setting but nobody really does it, or we write really stupid goals that we're not going to achieve, or there's always hangups and hiccups, but the biggest one is we just don't do it, right? So he took time in December every year to actually plan out the whole year. And we're talking now, I don't think you need to be this OCD, but this guy would write out everything. Like, literally, here's January, here's February, here's March, here's April, here's my annual goals, here's exactly what do I want to achieve. He would even, now he said he had to get permission from his wife, but he would ask her first, "Where do you want to go this year?" And she'd say, "This is where we're going." And then even in that goal setting session, he would write the exact date that his plane would fly to Hawaii or whatever, and this is where they're going on vacation, and this is how many days they're staying. And he got real very detailed. Okay, well, that might be excessive for most people, but I'll tell you what, it worked. That guy, every year I would say, "How'd you do this year?" He goes, "Oh, I achieved like 80% or 90% of all my goals." And so I think that's the key before we go anywhere. It's just the concept of, you got to set the goals, or otherwise you're not going to achieve them. So that was a little story, a little reminder for you. And that's kind of what the theme of this is. So I want to start, like, just kind of talking about what we want to achieve here, and what the plan is for the session. So first of all, we want to talk about like setting clear goals and targets for the year. I know that sounds like, oh, very simple, but believe it or not, it's harder for most people than they think. The next thing that we want to do is we want to realign our KPIs and tracking to achieve outcomes. So KPIs, in case you don't use technical marketing jargon very often, that stands for key performance indicator. That's, I don't know what geek developed that from an MBA program at some point, but all it really means is, what are your numbers? And so we want to make sure we know our numbers for the year and that we're starting to track those. The next thing we're going to go over is mapping out a plan for accomplishment. So you can set a goal, but if you don't design the plan, you're kind of destined to stumble around. So I spent several years as a fractional chief marketing officer for companies. And one of the biggest things I would do is I'd just say, well, first of all, what you want, you're making 2 million a year this year, and you want to get to 2.5 next year, or I'm at 5 million and I want to go to 6. Okay, great. That's great. But how the heck are you going to get there? And you need to know, like, we usually need to break it down into quarters. So I think quarters are magic amounts of time, because it's too difficult to know where the heck you're going to be in a year sometimes. And definitely 10 years, like, you can have a vision, but we tend to get lost as humans, and our attention span is short. But everybody can live in the quarter, that little quarterly world of 90 days. So what we do is we take that annual goal and we break it down into those quarters. And then when you do that, you can get your mind wrapped around it, and then you at least plan quarter one of 2024. So my goal for you is, at the very least, set a goal for the year, but then think about the quarters, like, how I'm going to break that down into Q1. And I think that's one of the keys, if I can be so bold as to generalize. The next thing that we want to make sure we're going to cover is budgets, the channels, right? Meaning the channels of marketing, the important trends that are going on right now in the industry, and then just set you up for massive success in 2024 and beyond. So before I go further, I actually have something cool that we put together for free. We have these free guides, and you can go to my website and you can find them and then click and download. But what I did is I just put them all 3 of them together. So if you go to autostylemarketing.com/free guide-1, that URL up there. And if you forget it, I can send you these later. They're also linked to in our document. But what I have in there is some really great marketing reports that'll help. One's called Gear Up Auto Accessory Profits, another one's Rev Up Your Restyling, and then we have this ROI calculator. And I'm going to go over that today. That's probably the handiest little tool because it's a spreadsheet. You just make a copy. It's not a complicated spreadsheet, but it'll help you. The other thing, we just did this at the SEMA Pro Council. Some of you guys might be aware, but we've got these really cool sheets that we created for the Pro Cup Challenge. So if you're looking for those, you can ask them. They already have them, or you can get them from me. And we created a flyer for you so that if you want to, show the Pro Cup Challenge winners, and you want to have that build sheet, we've got that available. There's also one without all the numbers if you don't want to show retail and dealership prices and the car looks bigger. And there's a space to put your logo and a space to put a QR code. I'm willing to talk to you guys about customization if you want on those, but we're really excited. We just put those out there. I don't think they've announced it. They might be mad that I even mentioned it, but oh well. I'm the one that made it for them, so they're just gonna have to deal with it. A little bit about me. So I still have this title called Fractional Chief Marketing Officer, which is a fancy thing. And all it means is that when a company needs a CMO, but they can't afford it or don't want to pay for like this, full-time person, that basically I did it part-time. And I am making my whole specialization about restyling now. I love the industry. I'm really excited about it. I have a marketing agency called Autostyle Marketing. We're full service strategy consulting marketing agency. And I'm working with some cool clients right now, like Auto Trim Design and Integrity Customs. And I see Manny's here. I'm working with Manny now, just started with that recently. A company called Wicked Wraps that does vehicle wraps in the Northwest. Trying to talk them into franchising. And then we're helping with SEMA Pro Council. And I've been doing marketing since the first brick and mortar business that I started back in 2005. I owned a gym and we were going to become millionaires. The fitness business is a tough business, by the way. I'll let you know that. But I always tell people you can learn marketing a couple ways. You've got people that enter marketing because they were really technical geeks and they want to actually find a job, and so they're really good at computers, and so they go to business owners who need help with marketing, and that's how they got into it. Another type of person that gets into marketing is somebody that they were a design person, and they loved graphic design or making videos, and they wanted to be the next Steven Spielberg. It didn't quite work out in Hollywood, so they got into marketing. Nothing wrong. These are both all great ways to get into marketing. And then there's another kind of marketer, and that's somebody that started on the business side, and that's like me. So I'm the person that I've always been an entrepreneur my entire life. I've always had, ever since I was a little kid doing a paper route. I've never had a normal job for more than a few months because it's always been this entrepreneurial thing. So I feel your pain, and that's how I come to marketing. So I understand the most important thing is to get an ROI. And that's what we want to do with marketing. And then I want to talk about some pain points that I'm hearing. So, and by the way, you guys, if you resonate with any of these, in the chat, do me a favor and write yes or write 1 or something like that in the chat if you resonate when I go over these. So there's 3 things that we're looking at with most restyling companies. We've got dealership wholesale, we've got retail, and we've got commercial fleet. And everybody I talk to who says, you know what, I would really love to do more commercial fleet because I've been relying on dealership for years. Or, man, we got to get into the retail market. The dealerships are slow, right? And so what I want to focus on today is if you're a typical restyler and you have a full service shop, or maybe you specialize even in one specific niche, like for example, the vehicle wrap companies that just do that. Well, you always have 3 target markets. You've got a dealership wholesale, you've got retail, but you also have commercial fleet, and each is a different animal. They're very different animals. So you need to treat them as a different focus, right? Well, here's what I hear. The dealership wholesale, I'm hearing, oh, well, if I'm a reseller, I've got employee headaches and I'm dealing with all of these issues with the dealership. They're closed-minded. The salespeople have these like blinders on and they can't even think about accessories. It's the last thing they think about. Since 2020, there's the low inventory problems. And then they're complaining. The salespeople are always complaining. And some of them are still demanding that we provide, old school, like, give me a whole, workbook or, a binder, send me a binder, and they won't get into the digital world. Well, and like Josh Polson is always talking about with their auto accessories configurator, and they're, they're trying to get people into the 21st century, but it's slow going. So that's the dealer, some of the pains on the dealership side. And they're, they don't want to carry stock. They don't want to have they're just not willing to do a lot of stuff because they need to be educated. The second pain point I hear about is retail. On the retail side, people just don't know that you exist. Even after all these years, you could have been around for 40 years and people are like, oh, you're there? Because the general public doesn't really understand that accessories is even a thing that they would even consider. And then people don't know what's possible. And I think it was the old Zig Ziglar quote, people, I can't do a good impersonation of him, but people don't know what they want to buy because they don't know what's available to them, and that idea is, well, they don't, the consumer, if the consumer is heavily female, which it is, we know that females love to buy, but they're not into accessories. And I have a story about that in a sec. And then the last one is commercial fleet. So I'm hearing outfitters, like the big outfitters, they do those large companies. They seem to have the corner on the market in that case. And we don't have a person dedicated to commercial sales, or we don't have time to build the relationships with these business owners that might own 50 trucks or 20 trucks, or even the smaller business that has 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 trucks, but we'd love to do it. So does that ring true for any of you guys? Leave me a little comment just so I know I'm not totally off base. Does any of that sound like it makes sense to you? All yes. Thank you, Nick. All 3 yes. I love it. I appreciate it. And if you're driving, don't try to leave a comment. It's okay. No worries. All right. Cool. Thank you. I appreciate the feedback, guys. It's helpful. And if you have a question, pop it in there at any time. You can interrupt me, and I'll definitely take time at the end as well. So all yes, LOL. Thank you. Yeah. So we're going to go over some of those things today. Now, the first thing I want to do is talking a little bit about the importance of having a digital footprint. And it's not a choice anymore. Okay, it's a necessity if growth is what you're looking for. And I know this sounds kind of common sense, but I still, every day, I will talk to a business owner who they're like, yeah, we're kind of dinosaurs, or we have a website and we're doing this and that, but I just don't have time, or like I don't know if we're doing it right. And it really, now where the consumer trends are going, we all know that people are not even going into the dealerships as much as they used to. They're trying to buy online as much as they can. And the dealerships are aware of this. But we also have a huge opportunity, because if you're on the restyling side, instead of looking at it as a scary negative thing, look at the opportunity of online. Because in the past, people would have to go to a dealership. That's the way it works. They talk to the salesperson, they go through, and then we were at their mercy in a sense. Like, I hope they sell our stuff, right? But now if people are online, we can plant seeds before they ever even go into a dealership. In other words, we could find people that are looking to buy a car, whether it's used or new, right? Or looking for anything that would personalize or customize, and we can get out in front of them faster. And in some cases, we might even beat the dealerships at that, even though they've got typically a bigger budget. But they're also sometimes clumsy with how they market online. So the biggest thing is just knowing that you've got to be there, and it has to be your market, and has to be your focus. I had a really good statistic given to me by a guy in the marketing world, and they had studied thousands of businesses. This might be useful for you to think about. Back of the napkin kind of math, he said, you know what? For a growing business, not a startup. So like if you're a startup and you make a couple $100,000 a year, and it's really just covering you and maybe yourself and one employee or two, this might not apply to you. But once you hit about the $1 million mark of revenue a year and above, the numbers begin to look a little bit more predictable. And that is in terms of growth. So like, let's say you want to grow, and let's say you're doing 3 million this year and you want to get to 4 million next year. Okay. A lot of the clients I have are in the couple $1 million a year, and they're trying to scale. Okay. Once you get in that world, your budget for marketing and advertising is probably going to be roughly 10% of your revenue. And that is now, if you're small or you're just starting to grow, you're going to think that's a crazy number. But that means that but this is very, very common for businesses to do that if they're trying to grow. Now, if they want to maintain and they're trying to cut all the costs and they just want to like sell the business next year, then they don't need to do that. But if you're trying to grow, usually they spend about 10%. Now, let's say you're bringing in $200,000 a month of revenue. Okay, well, that'd be 20 grand that you want to reinvest in advertising and marketing. Now, that's your entire budget. Okay, that's the whole budget. That's it, that's all of it. That would include a vehicle wrap for yourself. That would include a banner. That would include your, when you go to the trade show, that includes your SEMA budget. That includes your flyers and your business cards. But it also includes the digital, and it includes paid ads, and it includes everything. If you run a radio ad, all of that would be included in that. That's your entire budget on average. I don't recommend spending more than that, by the way, even if you think you can afford it. You got to have some margin left, right? Well, out of that 10%, about 45% of that, so we'll just call it half. So about half of that should be on the digital side. So again, if you were spending 20 grand, then you would probably spend 10 of that on digital total to scale and grow. Now now do you have to spend that? No. That's just saying that if you do spend a budget like that, it wouldn't be out of touch with reality. You wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, I'm crazy, I'm spending so much money. Well, when I look into the numbers, okay, so that 20 grand, 10 grand's on digital, about half of that is ad spend, which is about 5, which leaves you another half for everything else in digital, which is like the management of the ads, it's the creation and the management of SEO and websites and all that kind of stuff. So just use that as a ballpark. But when I talk to businesses, they're spending usually a tiny fraction of that. And that's great. So in the sense that if I'm a business owner, yeah, I don't want to spend a lot of money if I don't have to, right? You don't want to spend, you want to invest and get an ROI, remember. So what you're looking for is, can I get 2x my return, 3x, 4x, 5x, 10x? And if we run the numbers, you can find that out. So I went off a little tangent there and lectured for a minute, but I wanted you guys to just hear that, because the back of the napkin numbers usually help, at least give you rough ideas of what you could do. And then the next thing is, let's talk about setting those clear goals. So we're going to talk about SMART goals, kind of basic, but I think it's really useful to remember what these are about. They have to be specific. So you need to specify what these goals are, okay? Define the goals with precision. So for example, I want to increase monthly sales by 20% for specific restyling service, whatever, okay, I need to increase by 20% on PPF. Okay, I need to increase monthly average sales by 20% on, lift kits, whatever you're doing, whatever it is that you want to focus on this year. And by the way, I'm hearing everybody wants to get more PPF, good margins, right? But whatever else you think is going to be the winner this year for where the market's going, that's what you want to start writing those down. The next one is make sure they're measurable. So use metrics like increase website traffic by 30% in the next quarter for clear tracking. So again, it's about the specifics. Make sure it's something you can measure, not I just want to get better at social media. That's too vague. Another one is relevant. So obviously it's relevant to your overall objectives with your company. So align marketing goals with the broader business objectives that you're looking to achieve. I've seen this done incorrectly a few times, where you have a goal and it's like, I want to get more impressions and likes on Facebook. And that's not a horrible marketing goal, but it was sort of not really relevant to them, because what they really wanted is to build their, commercial fleet, or they wanted to, and they were marketing to the retail side, and it didn't even affect what they really wanted to do. Or they were marketing all the dealerships and then they weren't doing retail, right? So just make sure it's relevant to your main focus right now. And then the next one is time bound. So realistic timeframes. So like, I want to generate 100 leads from Facebook ads within the next 2 months. That could be done, but you wouldn't want to say, I want to generate 10,000 leads. And if you don't know how many leads that are possible in that example, then you got to test it. So for example, what we always do, because a lot of people say, well, I don't know how many leads I can get from this advertising channel. Great. All good marketers are testers. Okay, all marketing really is applied psychology. It's psychology plus math, and nobody really has a crystal ball, so everything needs to be tested. So you start out with 30 days of testing on Facebook and with a low budget, and you see, okay, well, here's what I'm trying to get. How many leads can I get from this amount of money? And you're going to find out things like a lot of data. You're going to find out your costs. You're going to find out what average cost per click is and how much it might get you to get a lead. And then from there, you can scale up and figure out, okay, well, now I know what those numbers are. So there's a tip for you. If you don't know, like have no clue, start with a 30-day test of whatever it is that you're trying to do. And the next is the audience alignment. So tailor goals to align with the needs and preferences of the target restyling audience. Again, this is a big one. Remember what we said in the beginning. You have at least 3 target markets. Your business might have others, but the ones that I focus on today is retail, wholesale dealership, commercial fleet. So each time you are setting a goal or you're going to do some marketing, you got to remember you have to market to those specific people with specific marketing, right? So it's a message to market match. We want to make sure that what we're putting in front of those people is actually going to appeal to them. There are some marketing things you can do that could appeal to everybody, right? And that just building your brand, but you also need to make sure that you're targeting those specific people. Let's talk about the KPIs now, okay? Basically just making sure that we're clear that the right metrics and keeping track of them is essential. So I'm going to beat the dead horse a little bit here, but talking about measuring what matters. So the industry relevance is important to remember. So, you know, you want to regularly assess your KPIs to ensure that they align with the unique challenges and opportunities in the aftermarket restyling industry. It's a little different for us than it is for, you know, say somebody selling sandwich shop or something. And you want to be able to adapt to trends. So we want to be flexible and adjusting them and changing, you know, the trends as the trends change. We want them to be data driven and modify them. So we're going to utilize the data and the feedback you get. And I would highly recommend the SEMA reports that they put out. If you haven't had time to read them yet, I know they're a little boring and dry for some, but there's always some insight that I start learning when I read through those. And then they can kind of help you adjust your goals. For example, they really think, when I was at SEMA, they were big on CUVs. Obviously, trucks is still the dominator in our market, but the sedan and the little cars, they're predicting that's going to be less and less of the market over the next few years, and that CUVs is climbing. Well, why? Because there's more of them on the road. That's what the dealerships have been selling. So we have an opportunity there. So that would be an example of adjusting, right, a little bit to what they're thinking is going to be the next thing coming around the corner. Lining up, again, aligning them with your business goals, and then also getting feedback. So the feedback loop means you make a prediction, you test something out, but then you're looking, okay, how did it work, right? How did it go? This is a picture of a client I have where and this is another one that I was really eye-opener. We went and we looked at the total revenue. We went and tracked this. So my number one tip for tracking is to just start doing it, even if it's imperfect, right? So for example, they didn't know how many commercial fleet sales they made because they had never separated that from retail. It just kind of all got lumped into revenue. So when what we did is we actually went through the numbers for about 6 months, and we went, well, where's the sales actually coming from? And they realized that 61% of their business revenue came from wholesale. And it was about 36% came from retail and a whopping 2.2 from commercial fleet. Well, and I said, well, no wonder you're not growing commercial fleet, because first of all, you never even measured it. So you didn't even know how much was coming from commercial fleet. In other words, you expand what you focus on, right? Well, then also we analyzed, well, what was the total revenue per sale? Like, how big were the sales? And obviously commercial fleet was pretty good. It was 28%. So now they could have been a lot bigger. Like, the revenue per sale usually should be huge with commercial fleet, right? Because you think about you're selling on the volume. They might have given discounts and things, but the fact that it was already pretty good, healthy amount, equal to retail just about, showed that even when they bumbled around and made a sale every now and then, there was still a good sale. And so those are the types of things just to track. And to make this a little easier, what I did, and we have this as that free downloadable, I made a spreadsheet. It's a very simple spreadsheet. It's not rocket science, but I made it in order to make it a little easier to just break down some numbers for you. And so you can get that with the download, but there's 2 versions of it. I have a tab there where you put in your retail current monthly revenue, your monthly marketing expenses, the leads you generated, and and the conversion rate. You put in some numbers, and then at the bottom, it'll help you figure out your totals. But then I thought, well, that might be tough for some people to come up with all those numbers. So the next slide here, I actually created one that was the dummy version, the super simple one, which is, if you just know your top line numbers, and then you kind of can approximate your percentage of your business that is for retail versus wholesale versus commercial, then it spits out some numbers for you. So this is like super simple, just to make sure, like, hey man, you got a ballpark right back in the napkin, so that you can start looking at it and going, well, what is my conversion rate for commercial, right? Or what is my what is my average transaction value for a wholesale deal? And what is my margin? So if you really want to dive in and get into margins, then it can be really exciting. But you want to look at what's the most profitable, but then also, what's your closing rates for each one? And as you measure these, you're going to get an improvement in your business simply because you're looking at it. That's probably pretty different for some. I got a question. Thank you, Manny. My commercial business is coming from the fleet departments. Okay. When you say commercial, are you talking direct business to business? Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah. I'm talking about, yes, thank you. This is a really good, in fact, this is an opportunity, Manny, and for everybody. I know, and you guys know better than I do, that commercial fleet can come from there's different types, right? We've got commercial fleet that comes from the dealerships who are basically running those. And then you have directly to the actual businesses. And then you also could work with outfitters. So technically you could say maybe there's three primary sources of commercial. What I'm talking about here is trying to develop your own, because I think the real power is going around the dealership, not because you're trying to cut them out, but just because why not make all the money? And if you can develop a relationship with a commercial vendor, and you also, even if you're getting a lot of it from dealership, I would say both. So if you wanted to get really technical, you could even create more categories here, but I didn't want to overcomplicate this. So I just kind of called it commercial fleet. So I don't know if that answers your question perfectly, but I do realize there's a nuance there, right? Because you can get it all from dealerships. So I would separate it out anyway, because it is a different kind of, yeah, you're welcome, Manny. Thank you. Good feedback. I would separate commercial fleet sales, even if they come from dealerships. I would separate it into the commercial fleet category, just for your own accounting, but also for your own mentality, right? Like, hey, great, we got another commercial deal. It's exciting to see like that bulk thing come in. How are you suggesting that one tracks leads? I'm going to get to that in a minute, BJ. Good question. If you could hold on to that, I'll get back to that in a minute. Tracking leads, super important. Okay. Next part is your strategy, and then we'll get into the tracking part. Okay. I will say this actually before I move on. In tracking leads on the spreadsheet, what I call leads, I want you to make sure that they are solid phone conversations, appointments, or quotes. That might be the quick answer to that question, because a lot of times we get a conversion on the internet, like someone fills out a form on a web page and it's spam. Are you going to call that a lead? No, it was some spam bot on my web page, right? So I only call it a lead if it's a qualified lead, means it's an actual real conversation on the phone, or it's an actual quote request. It has to feel like, okay, this actually is somebody that's really interested, or it's a dealership salesperson or GM or sales manager that actually, you have a relationship with, and they're not just, tire kicking. So I like to call those leads. I call everything that is not quite that, I call them like prospects. Sometimes people reverse those two words, or I like to call them suspects. So like if you get a form on the internet and it's like, might be a lead, but I don't know yet if it's real, that's a suspect, right? We'll call that a suspect. And then we'll call the real lead or prospect somebody that you feel has the legits there. So hopefully that helps. This is basic for some people, but not for others. BJ, another question. So you're suggesting to track dealer, retail, and commercial leads separately? Yeah, I would if I were you, for sure. 100% track those separately. You can track them all in the same place, but you have to have a way of tagging or listing them as, okay, this is commercial. And I'll show you a screenshot in my slides of how we do that. We actually have, for one company, we have all of the dealership salespeople in a different funnel, and we track them in a CRM as a separate list, and we put all the retail on a separate list. So that way, when we have an inquiry from a salesperson, we're tracking, okay, he's tied to this Ford dealership or whatever, and then we can follow up with them and keep it separate. So this is the stages of what we call a marketing funnel. Some of you guys, probably everybody's seen this once or twice, and some of it, this is basic, but I think it's important for us to talk about it in terms of our world. Okay. So at the top of a funnel, if you imagine this funnel, you're pouring in leads, or you're pouring in traffic on the internet. And in the beginning, you're working at the awareness stage. We're just trying to get people aware at all. Okay. Now that's aware of accessories in general, or if you're in the dealership, it's the awareness that they can make more money, and more per copy is the term they use, right? More basically car sale. I want to make more money per copy. That's what the GM would say. Or they want to sell more cars. It's the only two things they want to do. Well, we need to make them aware that adding accessories is going to help them sell more cars, which they don't even think is true, some of them, and it's going to help them sell more per car. So that awareness is what you would be working at with the dealership, on the dealership level. On the retail side, it would be, are you aware that you can even accessorize a car? Did you know that you could have the perfectly personalized car for you? Wow, I didn't know that. And I got a great example. Micah George, who owns Auto Trim Design out of Seattle. She was not a car person. She had no interest in this stuff at all, but her husband was. And as she started to look at it, she goes, what? You can do what with a Bronco? You can give me leather interior, and actually you can make it exactly the way I like it. And she decides, you know what, that is kind of cool. I can have it exactly. And before you know it, she's spending some pretty good money on her Bronco. Well, that's a perfect example of a consumer who has money, who would be interested, but they just have no clue. They have no clue that it's even possible. And I still think that the best news of all, regardless of what happens to the economy, whether you are a doomsdayer and thinking that we're going to a recession or not, the best advantage we have is that people still don't even understand that we exist. And if they knew that what was possible, that would then help us in our business immensely. And it would overwhelm whatever negative things that are going on in the economy, because there's so many consumers out there that have the money. They just don't know it's something that they don't even know it's a thing. So awareness is huge right now. The second is once they become aware, then you're leading them down into interest. So now, are they interested? They're aware, okay, yeah, you exist, but now can we keep them interested? And this is where a lot of social media retargeting can come into play. So you get somebody aware of you, and then you start dripping the content on them, and you keep showing up. Then you're kind of developing the interest with those that are actually there. And then the consideration stage is when they're like actually considering you. So first, we just have to get people to know that accessories exist, right? That the aftermarket is there. Then we have to see, okay, well, can we get them to be interested in it? But then they're going to go and decide, well, which company should I work with? Who's going to actually do the work here? Who's going to install this for me? Or, this competitor, that competitor, whether I'm going to go, to the dealership, or am I going to go straight to the, aftermarket restyler? So that is an important phase. That's where you're differentiating between your competitors. Okay. But a lot of people are fighting down there in that part of the funnel, where you're going to see most of everybody is they're all fighting down there, because everybody wants the leads that are already interested and aware, because that's the low-hanging fruit, right? Level 4 is intent. This is where they have the intent to buy. Now that's the hot lead that everybody wants. And most people market only for 3s and 4s. So when you market, typically, let's say you do Google ads, which is a great way to market. But when you're doing Google ads, you're looking for people that are searching for it. And those people that are searching for it, often they're the ones in the stage 3 and 4. So everybody competes for them, because they're the ones that are ready to buy. But what I want to encourage you to do is don't forget about 1s and 2s while you're trying to fight for the 3s and 4s that are ready to buy now. Because the vast majority of the market, 80%, are not ready to buy right now, but they will be in 6 months. They will be in 90 days. They will be in 9 months. And so if you can get them earlier in the funnel, then by the time they're in the intent stage, you're the one that they're thinking of. You've built that relationship with them already. And then the evaluation is just kind of part of the sales process. Then they're like, well, they've already got the quote from you, and they're thinking about it, and you're closing a sale, and then the actual purchase happens at 6. I would argue that most funnels are not complete, because after this stage, there's the 7, 8, and 9, which is, wow them with amazing service, get a great review and a testimonial from them, have them shoot pictures of how excited they are and tell all their friends, and get a referral from them. So the referral part comes after the bottom of the funnel, which is a part of your business, and that follow-up, that fortune being in the follow-up. So just a quick review of that, something for you to think about as you're thinking about your plans and your goals for the year. The next thing to go over here is the differentiating yourself, okay, from the crowd, and focusing on branding and positioning. And then how are you recommending? Manny's got another question. How are you recommending 1 and 2? So let me go back. You're talking about the stage here of awareness and interest. Yes. Okay. Awesome. So let me just double check that. So what I recommend on awareness and interest, the best ways to do that is nowadays, the biggest bang for your buck is going to be digital marketing in general. You could do TV, radio, you could have a billboard out on the highway. In my experience, those things, they're pretty risky, they're pretty expensive. They may or may not work. A lot of times they don't. I think for nowadays, we're in the best time in the history of mankind to be marketing and advertising, because it's still really cheap online. I love Facebook ads and Instagram ads with videos, because it's like TV on the phone. You can get people to watch your video for pennies. Imagine back when you had to put it on the TV. A TV commercial could have cost you 10 grand, 20, 30 grand, you know, and get old, you know, who knows how many people actually saw it. Now for pennies, you can get that. So for the awareness stage, I think Facebook is a great place to do that. Instagram and Facebook. Also on awareness, I would say SEO is a little bit more on the interest and consideration, because they're starting to type in some things. So there's a difference between interruptive marketing and intent or search marketing. Search marketing is like Google ads and SEO, where people are looking for something. You definitely need to be there. Interruptive marketing is they weren't looking, but you showed up in their feed. They showed up wherever they go. And so I would recommend more of the social. And also on Google ads, you can do what's called retargeting with the banners, and you can show up in different places. So that would be more awareness and interest. And that was my quick answer to that. Hopefully that helped a little bit. Okay, so branding and positioning. Strong brand identity is crucial for Restylers. I used to not believe in branding. I thought branding was kind of silly. It was what big, dumb companies did with endless budgets. You have to understand that what a big company does is different than what a little company does. And a lot of little companies will copy what big companies do because they look up to them, right? So you have like the Nikes and the Coca-Colas and the Microsofts, these big companies. Remember, when they advertise or market, they have a different objective than you do, because they sometimes have, they advertise for different reasons. Sometimes they advertise because they just need to please their shareholders. Sometimes somebody on the board has a wife who really likes puppy dogs, and so the advertising agency put a puppy dog in the ad, and the board member goes, oh good, my wife loves the ad, right? And so it really didn't make any money. Nobody, you know, it wasted huge amounts of money. You can't advertise like the big dumb companies can, because you don't have that kind of budget. So when I say branding, I don't mean their kind of branding, like just having your logo on everything. That's not the kind of branding I'm talking about. I'm talking about intent-based branding, where the people that you're putting your stuff in front of, you have the intention of building a relationship, and they have the intention of looking at your stuff. And that's like what I was talking about with those kind of ads, where you can run things to the people that are near the top of the funnel, but you're in their feed. You're doing some ads that they're going to be able to see. And also that you're through really putting goodwill out there, getting information out in the marketplace, being helpful and friendly, offering free information, showing your process when you're working through a vehicle, and getting that out there educates people, gets them interested, and simultaneously builds your brand. So in other words, what I'm saying is you can actually get leads while building your brand. Instead of, people think about it as they want to build their brand so they can get leads, but you can actually get leads and have that build your brand at the same time. That's the goal for us as a smaller business. So this is a little framework. It's called the EPIC framework for branding. Kind of a cool way to do this. We've got, first, you have existence. So they got to know that you exist. All right. The internet's all about stories. Okay. And I want you to focus on telling your origin story to your audience, which is unique to you, in order to connect on a more deeper level with them. So you'll see a lot of restylers are getting a little bit better about posting pics and posting videos of the before and afters. That stuff's great. You got to do that. But what I see missing, except for a few of them, I think Chelsea from Crush Customs is doing a good job of this. She's one of the few. If you look at her Instagram and her Facebook, they're telling stories, or they're trying to a little bit better. Not very many people are doing this. So the story about who you are as a business owner, don't hide behind the business. It's okay. People want to know you're a human being, or maybe you're the head of the shop, maybe one of your main guys who's really loving what he does. Get in there and tell, and they may not want to be on camera, but even if it's just a little quick picture and there's a little story like, hey, you know, Joe here, he loves doing, he loves doing PPF, and he's a master at it. And he's been doing it for 7 years now. And here's a little bit about why he decided to get into it. And here's the result of his beautiful work. You would think, well, wait a minute, I thought this was supposed to be about the car. Well, it is, but every now and then you want to also talk about the story. Another example of a story would be your origin story is one. Another one would be, well, how about the story of the vehicle? Like, where did this vehicle come from? What was the situation? Maybe it was a used car, and it had gone through, a bunch of owners, and somebody really wanted to make it perfect for their kid to give it to him for a birthday present or something. And so tell the audience about that. Don't just say we took a car and we added this and doesn't look cool, because that's what all of us do over and over and over again. And that's not interesting, and that's not really telling a story. The next one is purpose. So talk about what you sell and why you sell it. So what drives you to do what you do? This one's a tricky one. I often ask business owners, why are you in this business? And the honest answer is to make money. Okay, I get it. Like, you got to make money. Of course you want to make money, but why else are you in the business? When I talk to Josh on the podcast, he's great with this, because he admits, my secret is I'm not really a car guy, but I love the people, and I love the business, and I love the relationships. So talk about that, whatever you love. If you do love cars, talk about that more in your branding. Identity. This is where you work on the logo, the color palette, the aesthetics, the aspects. So you want to make sure that if you haven't updated, if your logo still looks like it's from 1972, you can have vintage, but you can polish even the vintage look, right? And it might be time for an update. So think about a lot of these. I'll give you an example that's really a tough one for me. One of my clients is Auto Trim Design, and some of you guys know the history of Auto Trim. They're all over the country, and yet they're not actually a franchise, and actually they're not really connected to each other, and they're all separate, and they're all a little bit different. And so now we got this logo that kind of looks the same, but kind of doesn't. And what are we going to do with that? So most of you probably don't have that kind of challenge, but if there's something you can do to make sure that the look is polished, not just of the logo, but all of your stuff, you really want to think about that. Nick says, I recently started adding that human element and story to our Facebook posts, and the engagement increased drastically. Awesome, Nick. That's so cool. Very cool. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I love hearing that. That's a great example. It works. Stuff works. Communication. So set the tone in which you intend on communicating with the audience. Okay, so here's the trickiest one. This is kind of like a masterful thing. This is like a higher end sort of copywriting thing. Most people don't get this far, but this is what I want to aspire for all of you guys, is the best salespeople, the best marketers are great salespeople in print. So another way of looking at marketing is it's just salesmanship in print, right? Or in writing, or in video, or in picture, or online. So think about your very best salesperson. And maybe it's usually you. Probably nobody can beat you, but you or your top salesperson. And then think about how you actually close a sale, and how do you build relationships, and how do you talk? Well, if that worked actually selling, it'll probably work in the written word form as well. So sometimes you need to think about your own tone, your voice. Like, think about great authors. You kind of hear their voice in it, and they kind of develop their own style. So if you really want your marketing, I'm talking about the copy on your website. I'm talking about your blogs. I'm talking about your social media posts. I'm even talking about flyers that you print out and provide, or maybe the note that goes along with the flyer that you provide the dealership. How did you write the note? Does it sound like it really is from you, or is it all just corporate, polished, boring, right? Sometimes you will sell, not sometimes, almost always you will sell more with personality than you will without. So if you have no personality in any of your marketing, there's a place for corporate stuff. When you're taking your wholesale data sheets, and you're taking all the marketing material from Lumar or whatever, and you got to just put that up on the website, and you just customize it a little bit for you. There's a place for that. But what I'm talking about is those emails, or the text messages, or the letter that you send in the mail that has that personal touch. That communication tone will help you sell a lot more than not having it. Okay, next thing to go over is social marketing. Okay, so there's social media marketing. So content strategies that resonate with restyling enthusiasts, enhance brand visibility, and drive engagement. I'm just going to go over this real quick. So we have this list, and I want to talk about the importance of a kind of a professional presence on social media to drive engagement and traffic. And some questions to think about. So first of all, do you have your business profile set up? This is like basic 101, because I noticed a lot of times, you know what, I had a LinkedIn account 10 years ago, but I just never used it, and I'm not a LinkedIn person. I'm like, okay, but you just lost some leads, right? Like, I don't like Twitter personally. I don't use Twitter. It's now called X. I don't even understand it, but there are people that are actually on there that love it. They get their news on Twitter, and they actually are loyal, and they kind of like use businesses that are on there. So if you can be there, you probably should be there. You probably got to get some kind of presence, even if you have to delegate it to somebody else to do, right? Have somebody else do it for you, but be there, be everywhere that you can. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram are the basics. At least be on those platforms if you're not already. YouTube is tricky because you feel like, well, I got to get content. Even if you only have one video, have it up, because you'll eventually get yourself to get a second video. All right. So it's good to have those ready. And are you getting engagement on Facebook? Here's the next one. I think most of you guys are Facebook people. You want to ask yourself, am I getting this engagement? And if you're not, that's the sign that it's time to, okay, we got to change something about this. We got to increase the engagement. Reactions, shares, and comments are things you're looking at. And then, are you updating your social profiles on a consistent basis? So are you posting? If you're not consistent, you're going to suffer. I get this question a lot. Can I post too much? Am I going to annoy people? The answer is absolutely not. Maybe on your personal profile, you can annoy your friends and family, but on a business page, in the old days, we used to have something called like viral posts, on Facebook, and you could post on your business page and it would go everywhere. Well, Facebook quickly realized that that's not how they make money. They make money by charging you money. So it became a pay per play. So it's very little organic reach on business anymore. And that means that out of your followers and likes, now I'm not talking about people that don't follow or like you. Let's say they just happen to be, they're already like you and they already follow you. Every time you post, probably only 10% of your followers even see the post. So then let's say later that month you post again. Okay, well, now a different 10% might see it. And then you post again and a different 10%. Well, you still haven't even shown something to all your followers yet. So in other words, you could have a post every day if you want. You could have 5 posts a day. You can have 20, because the people that are going to see it are the ones that Facebook thinks are interested in it, right? And so you can't overpost anymore. Now, it doesn't mean that you should be posting garbage just to do volume. I'm not telling you to do volume, but I'm saying don't worry about overdoing it, because you really can't. The more likely problem is that you're underdoing it. And what we do, like in our agency, is we always recommend people continue to post on their own. Find somebody in the office that likes to be what I call boots on the ground marketing. And that person, they may have another job. Maybe they're in sales, or maybe they're your admin, or maybe they are a real marketing assistant. But their job is to be boots on the ground. So in other words, hey, I heard we're doing a new job out in the shop today. Go take a picture of that really quick. I want a before and after of that thing, and get it up on social media, or send it to our agency and they can turn it into other stuff too. That's called the boots on the ground marketing, and no one will be able to replace someone actually on site. So that person may just do that task. They also might organize other things, like they help you organize your vendors. Let's say you're going to go get some flyers printed or whatever, and they kind of coordinate marketing. They don't have to be a master marketer. Now, you don't want to pick somebody who's horrible at project management, by the way. The most important thing about a marketing assistant is that they have good project management and they have some affinity to marketing, but they don't not need to know everything, because they're probably going to work with a vendor or an agency like me or something like that. And they're there just to kind of be that presence for you to make sure that everything is lined up and everybody's working together on the same page. I'm going to talk about paid ads, and I'm just quick budgeting tips, optimization strategies, how to maximize impact your ad spend. So when I say paid ads, I mean digital ads. And what I'm talking about is mostly Google ads, and which also includes YouTube, because remember, Google owns YouTube. And they also have their Google ads, their network, which is like banner ads and that kind of thing. They call it display. That's all Google. Then you have Facebook, which owns Instagram. Okay, so Facebook and Instagram, one company. So you basically have 2 major players out there. Can you advertise on the others? Yes. But it's going to take a lot of experimenting. And the big, 1,000-pound gorillas are basically Google and Facebook. So I'd start there, because there's a lot of people on them. So first of all, are you running Google local service ads with your maxed out budget? So Google local service ads is something that is tricky because it's not available in every area, and it's a specific kind of Google ad. We're looking into that in various areas, and to try to see if Restylers can be qualified. But that's just something to maybe look at, maybe see if they have that in your area. And you can go to search Google local service ads. They call them Google guaranteed sometimes, or you might see them, in a title like that. Are you running retargeting ads to your unconverted leads? Here's another great checklist item. So what that means is, let's say you run Google or Facebook and you got ads going, and you have people that come in to your funnel, and maybe even they talk to your salespeople, but you don't close the lead. One of the most powerful things you can do is make a note of that, track it. We call them unconverted leads. And then we run special ads to them on Facebook that's showing only to them. And it's kind of like a win back strategy, we call it. Like, hey, you know what? I know that you could even write the ad to them like, hey, we're offering a special deal to now only, or just whatever it takes to get them to go over the line and make that decision. Another thing you can do is send text messaging campaigns to them too, unconverted leads. We call that a win back strategy, or a past client reactivation, a campaign. So text messaging and retargeting ads on Facebook and Instagram are very, very good ways of doing that. You can also use email, of course, too. And then, are you running Google ads at all? Some people give up on it. Google ads is really tricky. They can be really finicky. It's very hard because you've got to put all the right keywords in, and have the wrong ones pulled out. And it takes a lot of testing to dial it in. But are you running them in it, or have you been trying that? I'd recommend it if we can make it work. It's worth doing. And are you strategically targeting with specific ad groups, text ads, and landing pages? Here's another big one that I see. One of the biggest problems or mistakes that you can do in Google now, in Google ads, is you can run an ad or run a bunch of ads and then have them all just go to your homepage of your website. So ask your digital marketing person or your agency, hey, where are we sending people that click on these ads? And what you want is, you want to send them to a very specific page that matches the ad that the person clicked on. Now, that your website might be good enough to send them to pages on your website. That's fine. But there's a lot of criteria. I'm not going to go into that now, but you want to make sure the page that they land on matches what it is that the person's searching for. I see that a lot. And then you end up spending more money than you should. You don't get the leads that you want. And then you say it doesn't work. But it's really dialing that in that makes a big difference. Do you have conversion tracking in place to track leads back to the ad group and keyword? That's a technical thing. I hate doing that stuff. I have somebody on my team that does it for me because it's really hard to get it right. But that's about Google Analytics and making sure that it's set up just right. And then, are you running targeted Facebook ads to your ideal prospect base? Another thing is having a list. You can upload a list to Facebook of your customers, okay? And we call that a custom audience. You upload all your customers to Facebook. You made a custom audience. Then you let Facebook figure out who else is similar to that person. And they're spooky good at this, guys. They can do this. They can show you who else is like them that might be a buyer. So that's another great technique that definitely have that on your list of things to do. And then, do you have Google service ads? I already mentioned that one in your area. Are you buying pay per lead services? So some of you guys might be buying leads from a company. I call them lead gen companies. So, if somebody says, hey, we just sell you leads for X number of dollars. I don't do that. It's a different business model. There's nothing wrong with that, but it is something to be aware of, because in the end, my opinion is, you want to have your own lead gen system. You want to own your own marketing. You want to have your own marketing machine. So if you're buying leads from somebody, be careful about that, because if they ever don't like you, or if you ever have a falling out with them, or if they ever change the rules on you, then their price goes up, or they turn your leads off. And, so I'm not a big fan of that. But if you've got a good person who's doing that for you, just make sure that you're paying a fair price. Okay. And we're almost done here. Thank you guys for hanging in with all this information. Website optimization. Your website, it's the digital storefront. Now, I could go on for hours. I'm not. Just a couple quick points. It's user experience. It's about clear copy, mobile friendly, easy to navigate. Those are the main things to cover first. So you got to make sure that you have your phone number, usually in the top right corner, or a big button of every page, especially your home page. Make it really easy. There's got to be a call to action right up at the top. I see that not happen a lot of times. Are you using authentic images and videos and photos? And include the owner, maybe the team, your vehicles, etc. So we use stock photos when we have to. Sometimes all we get is the manufacturer photos and stock photos. But nowadays, you guys, Google knows if you're using stock photos, and it doesn't like it as much. It wants to see real stuff. So even if you have kind of just a picture of you and your team in front of the office or at the front desk, and you think, well, it's not that nice of a photo. Well, it's better than nothing. Use it. Start using personalized stuff as much as you can, or at least have a balance between the stock and the personal photos. And that's primarily on your main pages, like your home page. Then your about page, have a picture of you or the team. Don't hide behind the corporate identity. It doesn't work. The next thing is, do you have compelling call to actions on every area of your website? So at the top, here's a phone number to call, here's a button to click, here's a form, contact us. Website chat widget is what we do now a lot with text messaging. Are you making it easy to find? Are you giving customers the option to engage in via chat or two-way text? Is your website mobile friendly with an easy click to call button? So you want to make it really, really simple for people to take action. You can tell my theme here. And is it fast loading on desktop and mobile? A lot of times a website will be slow to load. And because it's slow to load, Google will downgrade you. Even if you're doing all this SEO and you spend all this money on ads, if your mobile site is slow and it's a free, you could type in, Google's speed test, and it'll show up a little website and just put your URL in. And if it's slow, then you've got issues. We've got to speed that up. Otherwise, you won't show up as often as you'd like. Email marketing, I might also include text messaging nowadays too, but email's very, very powerful, and don't overlook it. It's very powerful because you control it. You rent the media on Google and Facebook, but you own your email list. There's power in that email list. Okay. So a couple quick checklist items here. First of all, are you following up with your leads within 5 minutes or less via phone, SMS, and email? That's a challenge. You got to check into that. Make sure your office is doing that. Sometimes I get in trouble as a marketer because my clients will say, hey, you know what? We're not getting as many sales as we thought. We're not getting as many leads as we thought, or the leads are no good. And then when I dig into it, they took a day to follow up with the lead. And then they're complaining to me about the leads. It's not my fault. People have a really short attention span. If you get a lead and you don't follow up for an hour, it's already too late. They might have called a competitor, or they just lost interest, or who knows, they get squirrel, So if you're getting a lead, one of the most important things you can do is follow it fast every single time. And so that's something to check. Do you have conversion campaigns in place that follow up with the unconverted leads 5 to 7 times via phone, SMS, and email until they book their follow-up calls, sales calls, or dealership customer service calls? This is a tough one, but we've got to get used to putting follow-up, automated follow-up when someone is a lead. So what I've had to do is build text campaigns and email campaigns to make sure that unless you have some people at your front desk that are really good and they're monitoring this, then you're going to have, and even then, sometimes you've got to make sure that unconverted lead, it doesn't get forgotten. There's a lot of money in there that we're leaving on the table because they didn't close, but it didn't mean they won't ever close. They just didn't close today, right? There's a lot of gold in them dar hills, as they say. So do you have a database for with your customers' emails? Make sure you start collecting them if you're not. Are you sending out a monthly email newsletter? It's the easy way to keep the email list warm. Even if they don't, even if you get a low open percentage rate, at least they're there. And then when you have a special, you never know. Are you leveraging email to get online reviews and draw customers into your social media profile? So email and text, I should update that slide. When you get a closed deal, you need to send an automated email and text to ask for a review. Absolutely a must, because and it's got to have the link and make it really easy. You need to build your Google reviews. And one of the best ways to do it is automate that to a happy customer. And I'm going to wrap up here. I'm just showing you a picture. This is an example of a pipeline, we call it, or an opportunity pipeline. This is the retail pipeline. There's another one for dealerships. So this is an example where we're sorting leads, where the new lead comes in on the left. The next column is needs follow-up. The next column is booked appointment, and then sold. Okay, and then there's other ones like followed up afterward or lost or whatever. And we're taking these and we're moving them into different categories. You can physically click and drag them, or you can set the settings. And we set these CRM systems up so that we make sure that everybody's getting followed up with, and we assign them to different salespeople and whatnot. So do you have something like this? And if you're on paper still and you're not digitized, that's fine, but you got to have something like this where it's organized, really, really well organized. And I know I'm running out of time here, so I'm going to go a little quicker through these. And we have our own BJ. We build a custom CRM tool that integrates with. It can be used on its own, but it also integrates with Josh and Tom's Restyler software for the aftermarket, their configurator software. And so because they have a software that works for the inside production of the business, and then what we do is build the front end of that, which is sort of the marketing and lead gen side of that, of our system. And so we built a system that works for Restylers. Okay, SEO. This one, it stands for search engine optimization. Okay, you want to optimize your online presence with SEO strategies tailored for us. Okay, and I'm just going to go over the checklist here. So I know that font's really small, my bad if you can't read it, but do you have your main keyword in the title tag on every page of your website? For example, you could use Restyler. A lot of people don't know that term yet. It's kind of an inside term, but it's getting more popular. But like city Restyler, you know, and then your company name. Okay, so Seattle Restyler Auto Trim Design. I would probably at this point use aftermarket. Might be a word you would use, but definitely accessories, auto accessories installer is probably the most common. I mean, you got to think of what people search. We're in a really funny niche. It'd be easier if we were plumbers, because we could just type in plumber, but when you're an aftermarket automotive, you got to use a few terms. So we have to use auto accessories. We have to use the word installer, restyler. We have to use the word aftermarket. So we might have to be a little bit more complicated than that, but you got to make sure that those words are showing up on your website. It's a big deal. We don't want to miss out, right? Another one is, do you have pages for each of your core services and products? This is tough because it makes for a big website. But when we were just doing Auto House, I hope Manny doesn't mind me picking on him, but we talked about his list of products and services, and on his old website, he had most of them, but he didn't have them all. And we're like, oh my gosh, this list is getting huge. So we created this giant list of all of his products and services. And then we had to create a sitemap, which is a picture of all the different pages. And now we're going to build out everything. So we need a page. If you're doing PPF, you need a page about PPF. If it's Lumar, Lumar. If you're going to do, tonneau covers, you got to have a tonneau cover page. And for every city, actually, that you're trying to rank in, that would be the recommended thing to do for that. But do you have pages for each of the sub-cities that you service? So you can get really technical. Let's say you're in your city, but you have a smaller, suburb that's next to you that you want to rank in, where you're going to need to build content around that little area too, not just in your primary location, anywhere that you want to actually draw customers from. So in my area, by the way, so Seattle's a giant city, right? And I'm not in Seattle. I actually live way north of Seattle in Snohomish, and I'm closer to another city called Everett. Well, if I want to dominate Seattle, I actually have to also write about Everett and write about Snohomish, the little town that I'm in. So I might have to have like Auto Restyler Snohomish, but I also might have to have Auto Restyling in Everett and another one in Seattle. And it can get a little sophisticated and complicated. So don't overcomplicate it. Just think, where's my major hub, and where's the other little ones that I have on my list? And you can effectively do maybe 2, maybe 10. And then Ian, thank you for sitting in, man. I appreciate you. He says, manufacturer wanted to sit in and get a glimpse of how Restylers look to optimize how I can more strategically position our hard parts to help align with your goals. Got a hard stop at 3. Catch up soon. Thank you, Ian, for being here. Appreciate it, man. Awesome. I'll send you the recording in case you want to hear the rest. Okay. Then do you have pages for the brands that your services that you service and install? So something about each brand. Do you have unique content on every page of your website? Here's another danger thing for some of you with older websites. Google's changed. You cannot just copy and paste stuff. They call that duplicate content. And if you're taking the manufacturer's content directly from their page and you put it on your website, Google says, well, that's the same as this other website, and they downgrade it. So what you want is original content. Even if you take the manufacturer's stuff, you got to rewrite it a little bit. And it's not hard. You just rewrite it to talk about your city and how you're a little different, and that you enjoy, installing it, and you're certified in it or whatever. and it's just a little bit of a tweak and it becomes your own, right? So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but you can't just copy paste stuff from one page to the next. It's not a smart thing to do. Does your website come up for the most important keywords? Your city, automotive accessories installer, and other similar keywords. So start searching for yourself in different categories. Okay, search for different products. Okay, and then are you consistently creating new content, blogging, and creating new inbound links? So you've got to have an understanding of SEO as a constant evolving thing. It's not something you do one time and then you're done. It's something that you invest in, and then over time you get more and more out of, and you have to constantly be putting new content on your website. And I'm wrapping up here with the last couple things. I just want to take a quick note. I know I'm going over time. If you can stay, appreciate it. If not, doesn't hurt my feelings if you got to go. But I want to talk about AI real quick because it's changing the game. It's revolutionizing the strategies. It's driving precision. It's personalizing engagement. It's super competitor. How did the whiskey come into play? You know what? Dino, awesome. Yeah, Dino asked, how did the whiskey come into play on my lead-in story? Okay, so it came into play where as he started his plan, he was a little too uptight, and he couldn't dream big. He drank a little, and then he could dream big, and then he drank too much, and then he couldn't read his handwriting by the end of the night. So, so I think there's a balance probably in there somewhere. Love it. Okay, so AI, something to be aware of in marketing. It's really changing the game. And there's data analysis. Okay. There's leveraging AI for insightful data analysis. A lot of the AI that we're using now, we're experimenting with AI in messaging with people, in communication. Obviously, everybody's heard of ChatGPT. You know, we've got different prompts that we're experimenting with that you can use to create more content, but it's also used to analyze the data. So you can look at the data on the back end of your website, and you can start using that data in a better way. There's personalization, kind of just talked about that. That's AI for tailored content and campaigns. There's automation, streamlining tasks with AI-driven automation. So we're doing that with text and email. Like for example, we can help set appointments with AI. So for example, you have a customer that hits you up on the web page, and you say, great, you know, maybe you're too busy to pick up that text or that phone or email. You could say, hey, great, when's a good time to get in touch with you? I've got an opening at 2 and at 3, and you can have AI help schedule that appointment for you. We do that with some campaigns right now, and also for audience targeting. The chat bots and virtual assistants, I kind of already mentioned that. That was how we did that scheduling. And then optimizing your ads, campaign improvement, you can use it for that. And then behavioral targeting, AI to analyze and target user behavior. This is going to change the game. You don't have to be an expert on it, but you can't be afraid of it either. You got to know that it's just another tool. That's all it is. And just like a hammer was an amazing tool, it depends on who's swinging it, right? So you can have AI and it can be useless if you don't have the right person or people that know how to teach it. My biggest tip for AI is to treat it like an intern. Treat it like an intern. If you hired an intern today, you wouldn't expect them to be able to do your job for you. You'd have to guide them. So AI, like when you get on ChatGPT, oftentimes people will say, well, I want it to do something. It spits out something garbage. That's because you garbage in, garbage out. You have to instruct it like you would an intern. Walk it through what you want it to do. Talk to it a little bit. Be very specific. And that's the key to making it work for normal people, right? People that aren't like brainiacs. Performance measurement, and we can measure performance. And then managing a budget, you got resource allocation. I'm going to kind of go through these really quick because I want to get to the downloads you guys have. We're going to give you all this stuff, focusing on ROI, testing and optimization, and long-term versus short-term. So pretty much like I said, start with testing for 30 days on anything that you do that's new, evaluate what that data gives you, and then scale up from there, and count on a healthy percentage of your money for marketing if you want to grow. And a lot of times after you get some feedback, you're going to be able to dial it in. Usually it takes about 90 days to really dial in what the actual budget should be. And then once you do that, you'll know, right? When you know it, you'll be able to predict in the coming years what it needs to be. But if you're not used to doing it, give yourself the quarter just to figure it out. And that would be what I would recommend. And then the trends, real quick, digital. So digital is changing. We talked about that. There's this sustainability focus, and I'm not just talking about the EVs. Yes, electric vehicles is like the biggest part of that, but there's also this concept of sustainability. So if you can include that in some of your marketing, sometimes that's a smart move. The other one is user-generated content. If you can get your customers or even just your staff in the shop making more content for you instead of just hiring, you can hire a professional videographer or a photographer to come and do like the professional commercial of your business. That's great. And get the headshots and all that. That's fine. There's a place for that. But most of the time, having your customer shoot a picture of the car, that's worth gold, right? Like, and asking them to put that in with their review, that's gold right there. Or even if you can't get the customers to do it, can you get the guys in the shop to do it? Come on, man, take a photo, please, before and after. Some shops it's harder than others, but usually you can do it. Personalization, we talked about that. And then these technological advancements are changing. So I went a little bit over time. I appreciate it. I'm going to stay on. If there's any questions, happy to answer them. I think I got any other questions you guys have, and you can come off mute if you want. I'm happy to hang on for as long as I need to. And if you got to go, I appreciate you being here. Anybody have any questions, feel free to come off mute or leave another chat message. No sweat.
Hey, Jesse, Dino here.
Yeah, hi, Dino.
Hey, you said you came up with your own CRM. Did I hear that right? Why did you not find a platform that already existed?
We actually do. We built, now technically we are using a platform. It's called Lead Connector, and it's built for digital marketing agencies like me. And so we actually use that, which is very, very powerful. And it's built off something called High Level. And then what we did is we added customization for restyling business. So technically we didn't start our own software company. I wouldn't do that. That sounds horrible. So yeah. So just to clarify, we didn't go through that much trouble. We actually used pre-existing tools that are out there, Lead Connector. And then what we did is we built something on top of it. The only trouble with our software is you have to be an agency really to get it and use it. So but we have it, and we can show you that to you sometime if you're interested. We include it for all of our clients, and we have options, inexpensive options for people. It's actually really cheap compared to most of the stuff out there. So yeah.
Yeah, I looked at this morning. Hey, with all the different restylers you deal with, is there one that some have found more success with than others? On the resale level rather than your level?
Can you ask that again? I'm not sure I understood the question. Sorry.
In other restylers you've dealt with, is there any of them that jump out, CRMs, that others have had more success with than others?
Unfortunately, no. I mean, I'm hearing like the biggest thing I hear about is the use of whether to use like QuickBooks or to use one of those competitors, because that becomes like a big thing. But there isn't really anything for our industry. All of the shop softwares, and I think this is why I'm not trying to plug Josh and Tom's software with their Restyler Connect and Auto Accessories Configurator, but that's why they started that, was because there wasn't really anything for the industry. And I think they're doing a good job. I mean, they're really working on improving that all the time, because what they have for shop management is just not made for us. I mean, it's okay. You can make any of these other shop management softwares work. I just think that it's not perfect. And my focus is actually not on the management side. It's what happens before it's an actual sale. So my focus with our software is all the stuff when it's more of a lead, when it's prospects and leads. And then whatever software you use, we usually integrate into that software so that then it has a transition into that. So my focus is what I call before the lead line. So before it becomes a customer. And people are trying all kinds of things, and I haven't seen anything that impresses me, which is why we kind of started customizing our own stuff.
All right.
Cool. Awesome, guys. Anything else?
Very informative, Jesse. Thanks for your time. You're singing off the same song sheet we are. So
that's fantastic.
You know our pain levels, you know our growth opportunities, and I love all your talk about budget or forecasting and analyzing data. So a lot of great things to think about.
That's awesome. And I'll finish with this, just in case you guys didn't get it. I'll just share my window here. I've got this document. Hopefully you guys saw it, but there's a document here. I mean, it's kind of huge. I didn't have time to go through it with you, but I wanted to show this goes into detail of everything I talked about. and it has even some more data, more information that I didn't talk about. And it kind of is designed to help you through, you know, goal setting and checking in with everything. So I put that in the chat and also send that out for anybody that wants it. Might be a useful tool. And I'd love feedback, you guys. If you want to email me later after you go through this workbook, I would love feedback on any of this, just because I'm trying to get better at doing webinars. This is my first one for you guys. So
Job well done. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jesse. Appreciate all you're doing for the Automotive Restylers, and can't wait to work with you more moving forward.
Yeah, please reach out anytime. And I've got my all my contact information is in there. You can email me also. And then don't forget the Ride and Style podcast. We're having a blast with this thing, and Josh is really funny. So if you haven't listened to these episodes, you got to check them out. And it's really cool to hear, right, from the other restylers, like what they're doing in their business right now. I think there's a lot of good stuff coming out of that. So
I gotta say, I learned a lot even about our business from the interview that you did with John Prosser. So it's really entertaining, and I'm gonna be watching them moving forward too. So.
Oh, that's so cool. Great. All right, guys. Well, if there's no other questions, I'll let you go for the day, and I appreciate it. And also, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
You too.
Same to you, sir. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Bye, everybody.